So, we have discussed about the different types of elimination reactions according to the relative positions of the eliminating groups. The first one was alpha elimination, that is, two groups are eliminated from the same carbon. One example of alpha elimination is the formation of carbenes. The second type was beta elimination, that is 1,2 elimination, that is two groups are eliminated from the adjacent carbons. And the third one was gamma elimination, that is 1,3 elimination, two groups are eliminated from alternate carbons. So, beta elimination results in the formation of pi bonds and gamma elimination results in the formation of cyclic compounds. The preparation of alkenes from alcohols, dihalides, alkyl halides, etc., they are through beta elimination or 1,2 elimination. Now, in this lecture, we will first study about the different types of elimination reactions according to their mechanisms, that is E1 and E2. So, first we will study about E1. So, in E1, E stands for elimination and 1 stands for unimolecular. Okay. So, E1 is written like this. Remember that sometimes by mistake someone may write like this, but this is wrong. It is 1 is not in the subscript, E1 is written like this. This one is the correct form of writing E1. Okay. So, elimination and unimolecular. This means there is one molecule in the rate determining step. Okay. So, for understanding the reaction mechanisms, some basic concepts of chemical kinetics is required. So, in chemical kinetics, there is a term called the rate determining step. So, when we write the rate of the reaction, so if a reaction has multiple steps like 2 or 3 steps, so the rate of the reaction does not depend on all of these steps. Sometimes the rate of the reaction depends only on one step, and that is called the rate determining step or slow step, because if there are several steps in a reaction, then the slowest step will determine the rate of the reaction. It can be compared with a real life example, that is, if you are traveling from one place to another, you may have different steps like different turns or different roads. So, the road which has more traffic or with the road which is slow, which requires more time to cover, that road will determine the total time taken for your journey. Similarly, for a reaction, the slowest step will determine the rate of the reaction. So, what is the rate equation? The rate equation is okay. So, the rate of the equation is written like this. K is the rate constant and these are the reactants involved in this reaction. Reactants involved in the rate determining step. Rate determining step is also known as RDS. We will use RDS henceforth. So, let us see what is E1 reaction? So, in E1 reaction, the major factor is that generally for beta elimination reaction, what happens? There are two carbons, one is the leaving group, let us say L, and there is one hydrogen. So, what happens? There is some base which takes up this hydrogen, this bond breaks, it forms a double bond here and the leaving group leaves. So, there are two major things happening in this whole process. One is the leaving of the leaving group, okay, and another is the abstraction of proton. That is hydrogen, okay. So, in E1 reaction, leaving group, let us write Lg, leaving group and proton leaves in two different steps. Okay. E1 reaction goes through the formation of carbocation. Okay. So, in E1 reaction, there is a step where a carbocation is formed, and formation of carbocation is the rate determining step. So, let us say there is this compound. Okay. So, in E1 reaction, in the first step, this leaving group will leave, okay. Without any reagent involved in this step, this leaving group will just leave. And a carbocation is formed. Why? Because when the leaving group leaves, it leaves as Br minus, that is, it is taking the bonded electrons with it. So, carbon will have a positive charge. So, a carbocation is formed. This is the rate determining step. This is a slow step. So, this is the RDS. So, now if we write the rate equation of this reaction, let us say this substrate is named as A. Okay. So, in the rate determining step, what will be the rate equation? Rate equal to K into A. Why? Because there was no other reactant involved in this step, only this compound A was there. So, we will write the rate equation as this. So, one molecule is involved. That is why it is termed as E1, okay, elimination unimolecular. So, the rate of E1 reaction depends on the stability of the carbocation. Okay. So, we know that stability of carbocation rises like this: tertiary greater than secondary greater than primary, right. that is, this is a tertiary carbocation. This is a secondary carbocation and this is a primary carbocation. So, the stability goes like this. So, the rate of the E1 reaction also goes like this: tertiary greater than secondary greater than primary. So, this was the E1 reaction. Now, we will study about the E2 reaction. In E2, as usual, E is elimination, two is bimolecular, that is, two molecules in the rate determining step. Okay. How? Because in E2 reaction, the leaving group and the proton leave in the same step. Okay. Leaving group and proton leave in the same step, and E2 reaction is a concerted reaction. Concerted reaction. What is the meaning of concerted? Concerted means single step. Okay. So, in E2, leaving group and proton leave in the same step, that is, E2 reaction is a concerted reaction. Now, in E1 reaction, the carbocation that was forming, this carbocation was the intermediate. Okay. So, intermediates are some compounds like carbocations, carbanions, carbenes, radicals, etc. These compounds are very unstable. So, they cannot be isolated, but they are formed within the reaction system. Okay. So, there is the carbocation intermediate. In E2 reaction, there is no carbocation intermediate. Okay. So, how does E2 reaction occurs? So, let us say okay. Now, there will be a base. This base will obstruct this proton, this bond will break and a double bond will be formed and the leaving group will leave. So, let us say leaving group leaves as HBr and a double bond is formed between the carbons. This is the E2 reaction. Now, since it has only one step, so obviously this is the rate determining step itself. So, here we see that there are two reactants. One is this compound, let us say the compound is P, okay, and there is this base. So, if we write the rate equation, then rate equal to K, that is rate constant, into P, that is this reactant, and base, right, because in this step base is also involved. So, this reaction will depend on the concentration of the base as well. So, this is the rate equation of E2. Since there are two molecules or two reactants involved here, so this is called E2, okay, elimination bimolecular. So, we have read about the E1 and E2 reaction. So, for E2 reaction also, reactivity order will be tertiary greater than secondary greater than primary. Okay, because for if we read about substitution reaction, then we will see that for SN2 this is opposite, but for E2 this will be the reactivity trend. Okay. So, we have studied about the two types of elimination reactions according to the reaction mechanisms, that is E1 and E2, and according to the relative positions of the eliminating groups, we had alpha, beta and gamma elimination. Now, with this we will start about the different methods of the preparation of alkenes. The next method is alcohols. Okay. So, alcohols have a general formula of CN H2N plus 1 OH. Okay. Or we can also write CN H2N plus 2 O. So, this is the general formula for alcohols. They are generally written as this ROH, where R is any alkyl group. Okay. So, alkenes are formed by dehydration of alcohols. Okay. Alkenes are formed by the dehydration of alcohols. What is dehydration? Dehydration means elimination of water molecule. Okay. Dehydration means elimination of water molecule. So, the reaction is like this. From there, alkene is formed and water is eliminated. Okay. Now, dehydration can be carried out by Al2O3 and mineral acids, okay, like H2SO4. With Al2O3, the reaction is simply like this. If we take ethanol and we treat this with Al2O3 at 620 Kelvin, we get ethene, okay. So, by treating ethanol with Al2O3 at 620 Kelvin, we get ethene. So, in the next lecture, we will study about the preparation of alkenes from alcohols by mineral acids. Thank you.